she kept on having these dreams of these birds that were singing outside of her window, but it was dark outside. These birds kept on singing and they kept on singing, but she would wake up and they weren't actually singing. It was a dream. And she said one morning she woke up and it was still dark outside and those birds were actually singing outside of her window. And the thought hit her that birds will sing in anticipation of the dawn, in anticipation of light coming, even though they don't see it, even though it's still dark outside. But they know that the light is going to come. They know that the dawn is going to rise, and they sing in anticipation of that, even though their circumstances around them don't give them any indication that that's actually true.
You know, that actually is a beautiful picture of hope, because even in the darkest of night, the sunrise, dawn is coming.
Welcome to the Practicing with Dr. Nathan Goodyear podcast. I'm the medical director at Brio Medical in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am both a conventionally trained and licensed medical doctor as well as a licensed medical homeopathic doctor. This podcast is your resource for a scientific-based discussion of all things cancer and beyond from a natural, holistic, and integrative perspective. It's time to teach the body how to heal. So here we go.
Here we are again, another Practicing with Dr. Nathan Goodyear podcast. I'm really excited about this podcast because one of our focuses on this podcast is to tell stories, to highlight journeys in this movement that is integrative cancer. You know, I've talked a lot about our focus, our purpose in integrative cancer is to return to the origins of what it means to be a physician, what it means to be a doctor. So I'll highlight that real quick again. The word physician is healer. And that's what it literally means in Hebrew, Rophe. So when we approach even something like cancer, we still want to remember our primary objective is to heal the body. So if we're introducing treatments that destroy the body, that's counter to what we are as physicians. And then that second part is the word doctor in Latin, docere. It literally means doctor. That translates to teacher. And so what we want to do is empower people through teaching, empower patients so that when they go talk to maybe their conventional oncologist to say, look, there's solid science here, solid science, and there is, to support that healing and that teaching strategy. And through that, we get hope. But what connects all of this are our stories, our journeys, because that's what life is. Life is a journey, a story, and we have many chapters through that. And often I tell all of our patients that, look, you're writing a chapter right now. What we want to do is we want to write a chapter that ends and then write a different chapter. We want to continue to write chapters. We want to continue to dream. And we're going to highlight a story here today of Jane Marczewski. Her dream, but actually her dream is continuing in a slightly different way. So we're going to highlight her story, her journey, and how it's really impacting lives today. So today we have this story of Jane Marczewski, and we have her brother here, Mitch Marczewski. So Mitch, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome. It's so good to be here. I'm happy to be here.
That's okay. Now you're from the great state of Ohio,
That's
right?
right.
Okay.
That's right.
And as I was joking with you yesterday, go Wolverines, was that it?
That is not it.
Okay, sorry. For all those that I just insulted in the state of Ohio, I do deeply apologize. Anyway, I always like to have fun with that. So, so tell me, you are the CEO of the Nightbirde Foundation. What is the Nightbirde Foundation? Why does that even exist?
Yeah, so the Nightbirde Foundation is a 501c3 that gives grants to young women that are going through breast cancer. And really our mission is to bring hope and to bring healing to women that are going through that journey. And, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but we founded it in honor of my little sister, Jane, her stage name was Nightbirde. She was on the America's Got Talent a couple years ago and had gotten Simon Cowell's Golden Buzzer. sort of in that process. But part of her audition and part of her draw and part of why she even got the Golden Buzzer was because she had a message of hope. She had a message of inspiration, and she had a message of, you could get through whatever you needed to get through, and you didn't need your circumstances to define how you respond.
Yeah, so there's two parts to that I really want to help our listeners and followers understand more. Is one, how her actual story, because it's a story that is becoming far too common today. And a lot of people go, why are younger women, people with, turning up with cancer? And a lot of it is just very complex, but transgenerational inheritance. And basically, our bodies are becoming, more unhealthy every generation. But also and let's start off with this, how did she come up with her stage name, Nightbirde? Because I think it ties directly into everything about it, because I don't think any of this is by chance. I think clearly there was a design behind everything that was happening in her life and even to today.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did she come up with that stage name?
Yeah, absolutely. So she, just to zoom out just a little bit, she was diagnosed with breast cancer at 28. And then she had gone through conventional treatments and sort of worked her way through that journey. And then she ended up passing away just a year ago, February, at the age of 31. But during her first round of sort of cancer treatments and going through all of that, she was a singer and she was a recording artist, and she really wanted to get her music out into the world. But she kept on having these dreams of these birds that were singing outside of her window, but it was dark outside. These birds kept on singing and they kept on singing, but she would wake up and they weren't actually singing. It was a dream. And she said one morning she woke up and it was still dark outside, and those birds were actually singing outside of her window. And the thought hit her that birds will sing in anticipation of the dawn, in anticipation of light coming, even though they don't see it, even though it's still dark outside. But they know that the light is going to come. They know that the dawn is going to rise, and they sing in anticipation of that, even though their circumstances around them don't give them any indication that that's actually true.
That actually is a beautiful picture of hope, because even in the darkest of night, the sunrise, dawn is coming. And I think that, I mean, that's beautiful. Did she come up with that name before she was diagnosed with cancer, or is it after?
It was after she had been diagnosed.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. And dreams, I think dreams are powerful. And I think often, God speaks to us through dreams. He's spoken to me through dreams. And so, I think that's very, very powerful. But it really highlights pictorially hope, because here she was in the darkness of breast cancer at an age where people should, 28 years old, I was still trying to figure my life out.
Yeah.
So I was in the middle of medical school, so it's like, goodness gracious. And yet she had to face that darkness, and she found the sunrise in that. That's really beautiful. So she was diagnosed 28. Did she have BRCA mutations?
No, nothing like that.
Do you remember what kind of breast cancer she had, or?
I want to say it was HER2 positive.
Okay. Any family history there?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what was so surprising about it, was when we got the diagnosis, it wasn't like, oh, grandma had breast cancer or mom had a scare or anything like that. It was really our first, cancer, really our first cancer impact within our at least immediate family that we'd experienced.
Wow. Did they do genetic testing to try to figure out, I assume, and didn't see anything?
Yeah, nothing came up.
Okay. And so from that standpoint, she went into then conventional treatment.
She did, yeah. She was in Nashville, Tennessee, and went, as most people do, they get diagnosed with cancer, then they go to their doctor, and their doctor refers them to an oncologist. The oncologist puts them on a track and says, we're just gonna, we're gonna do a double mastectomy, we're gonna do some radiation, we're just gonna get this taken care of,
And she got chemo alongside that.
Yep.
Did she have, what stage was her initial diagnosis?
It was stage 2.
Stage 2, okay.
Yeah.
So it had not spread, at least that they knew.
Correct.
Beyond that.
Correct. And even part of her, even part of her journey as well in that was she went in because she felt a lump, and her doctor initially was like, you're too young for breast cancer, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And she was just stubborn enough, and she had it in her gut. She was like, I don't think this is this. I don't think this is it. So she just badgered him and badgered him and badgered him. And eventually he was like, fine, I'll biopsy it. And, and then it came back, So what is it? What is that story of the Bible, the persistent widow or whatever, that bangs on the door of the evil
keeps
judge?
knocking.
You know, it keeps knocking. He's like, fine, I'll do it.
That's right.
So yeah, that was that was very much one of those situations where she had to take control of her own healthcare in a lot of ways in that space where she was like, I know in my gut that this is something more than that.
Well, you know, there's even an underlying story there, because that's important for people, and the reason for podcasts like this is, you know, to be your own best advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And there she was being her own best advocate, but she was clearly driven, she was clearly empowered. She sounded like a very strong young woman.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like that's anybody you could tell no to. She was gonna, if she was called to do something, she was gonna do it. You just have to get out of the way and figure out how you're gonna be a part of it or
yeah,
not.
Totally. No,
Yeah.
believe me, I've tried to stop her from doing things in the past, and I just got ran over every time.
She sounds like
Every
I've never met her, watched little bits and pieces of her audition.
And when you see her, like, she's this tiny, you know, 90-pound, like, you know, short as I am, kind of little, you know.
Well, they say big things come in small packages.
That is 100% correct in that.
And so but even big things that are from her small package of life, really time-wise.
Totally.
And, you know, just body frame-wise,
Mm-hmm.
what she is now doing through you is really, you know, showing what can become of something that seems tragic, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it's you know, it's a life too short.
For sure.
But at the same time, there's clearly a divine purpose here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually something to celebrate, because her life is being used for something that is going to change lives.
Yeah.
So it's going to become exponential, and that's why I wanted to highlight what you're doing through the Nightbirde Foundation, because number one, it highlights her life. It honors her life and the strength that she showed. I mean, it's enough to see that kind of strength in somebody that's, you know, 58,
Mm-hmm.
68, that's lived a long life. But it's quite another to see that kind of strength. That's not a physical strength that is just learned. That's something that is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very clear that there's an eternal purpose there. And that's why I wanted you to tell this story. So she was a musician.
Mm-hmm.
She was a singer, right?
Yeah.
Did she play any instruments or just sing?
Yeah. She played guitar and played piano, and
What was her favorite music?
her favorite music, man, that's a good question. She went through this evolution even in her musical career where she went to Liberty University in Virginia, and
Great school.
And then she became kind of like a singer-songwriter, just acoustic guitar, wrote a lot of that type of stuff then. And then when she transitioned she moved to Nashville, and she started doing a lot more pop.
Okay.
Like, a lot more pop music. So it was really cool to see her, even her musical journey, because she was always very, very gifted in that way. Amazing songwriter, and her voice was great. Yeah, it's no surprise that they reached out to her for America's Got Talent.
Yeah. So I mean, the talent was there, right?
For sure.
The talent was already there.
For sure.
This was just an unfortunate turn in her story
Mm-hmm.
that highlighted that. So she was clearly gifted with that. So she went through chemo. She went through radiation. What happened after that point in her journey?
Yeah, so she had gone into remission, and then she started feeling it. She was good to go for probably, I want to say it was 6 or 9 months, somewhere in that ballpark. And then, you know, you have the classic, like, your back hurts, symptoms, and like just wasn't feeling great. And then, you know, went back in for scans in late 2019, and we got the results back in, I think it was close to New Year's Day-ish, 2020, that, you know, it was stage 4 metastasized, you know.
Where had it moved to?
It was like spine, liver, all those.
So it kind of had gone over. Now it was stage 1 or stage 2 initially. Now stage 4.
Correct.
And it's 6 to 9 months there.
Yeah. So that was the conversation that she had with her oncologist in Nashville was, you've got 6 months, 9 months in the high end.
What did they offer her at that point?
They offered her more chemo. It was one of those things, but it was also the conversation of, well, you have 6 to 9.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to do that on chemo, or do you want to do that not on chemo?
You know, that's really interesting, because that's predicting the number of hairs on our head, right? The number of sand pebbles on the beach.
Yeah.
And I always joke about that, because I always say, you know, I must have missed that class, or must have fallen asleep of that class in medical school where we were taught how to play God with a little G and predict that. And I'm like, no, we never got that. So I understand what they're doing, but our job as physicians here is to give hope. It's not to tell a person what they can't do, because we've all heard many people we can't have children, and then they end up having twins, and then lo and behold they have 8. You can't heal from cancer, and lo and behold they do. You hear these stories that people are told what they can't do by doctors all the time. And so I just really think it's important that we as physicians, not just in the integrative movement, but in the conventional, because I come out of that conventional world, we need to give patients hope. Be honest, be real with them. You have a tough journey ahead. You have a tough battle ahead. But you know what? The body's designed to heal. Let's see what it will do. And I think that's one of the things that does separate a natural, holistic, integrative approach from a conventional approach. We really want to focus on what the body can do, not what it can't. So at that point in her journey, she's basically being offered what she already got, or nothing.
Yeah, or nothing. Yeah, and then there were conversations around different types of chemo and that type of thing, and then you have standard of care, stage gates and things of that nature that played into that too. Where even her oncologist in Nashville, she was a wonderful woman, and she was working with what she had, and she even said, "Hey, this particular drug may work, but your insurance company's not going to pay for this. Like, you have to do this one, and then you have to do this one, and you have to do this one before we can get there." And she's like, "We just don't have time to get there." So I mean, I don't want to throw shade on them necessarily, because they were working with what they had, and they did what they could, and all of those things. But to your point, the focus was more how do we just sort of manage this process moving forward, as opposed to how do we really empower you to heal and move forward as well.
And that's what I was getting at, Mitch, was that I always try to build bridges. But sometimes to build a bridge, you have to highlight something.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And one of the things here, because I love being a doctor. Being a doctor is actually being a servant. It's one of the most. It's one of the many things that makes me smile when I get up in the day. Seeing a patient, there's almost no better feeling in the world than seeing a patient that had stage 4 cancer, then has a clean skin and is in remission and no evidence of disease, and to see the joy on their face, to see that hope really manifested, and so what happens when doctors come in, so those of you who may be listening that have been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, the first emotion is fear. It's just fear. And so what we want to do is, you mentioned yesterday, faith over fear, hope over fear. And so that's what we want to do there. So from that point, what did Jane decide to do?
Yeah, so it was really an interesting turn of events, honestly, where she was connected with someone in Nashville, I can't remember who now, that that had done some integrative care in the past, or either he did or someone in his family had, and they had seen some really amazing results come out of it. And it wasn't this like silver bullet sort of thing. Like it was very much, he was like, "Hey, this is a whole package. Like, you're changing your diet, you're changing the way that you live your life, you're getting all sorts of therapies, plus we're working specifically with your cancer, and all of those types of things." So, at that point, we had gotten connected with the Cancer Center for Healing in Irvine, California, with Dr. Keneally, and so we flew her out. It was like within a 3 or 4 week time frame that we flew her from Nashville out. I did, and then I got her settled in for a couple weeks, and then my wife went out. She was probably 7 months pregnant, and she came out for a month and took care of Jane. And then my younger brother moved out full time to live with her for the duration of.
So I mean, this became a family affair.
Correct. Yeah. We all pitched in, and I was out probably once a month, or at least once every 6 weeks for a week or two, to just be there and to take care of her and drive her to appointments and all those sorts of things. So even in that journey, it's been an interesting, path for me, having only known conventional, my entire life, not even really seeing integrative as even an option for anybody. Growing up in the Midwest, it's not exactly the ubiquitous, like therapy. But going into the clinic, like learning the treatments, learning the pacing, learning the dosages, it was really amazing to see the results of what had come out of, the people that I'd met there, and then even Jane's story as well.
Yeah, because one of the things I always highlight is that conventional medicine can also be a blessing.
Totally.
You break a hip, no doctor should tell you to take more vitamin D. You need to surgically repair that hip.
Right.
If you have a myocardial infarction, a heart attack, guess what? There's great learned doctors in the ER, nurses in the ER that can help protect that heart through further damage, so that then you can heal from that process.
100%.
So, integrative is not a anti or antithetical to conventional. It is just a parallel, if you will, track.
Sure.
That is really just saying we're going to use some conventional here, but we want to use natural and holistic here. And maybe if we use something conventional, we may use it more holistically. So it's just really bringing together all these different treatment modalities. That really are focusing not just through a disease-centric model, but through really, again, that kind of focus on healing. And what's interesting is like you were made aware, enlightened, if you will. A lot of people go, I first never heard of it.
Yeah.
Second, you mean there's science there? And that's one thing that really became probably a part of her journey and a part of your journey. So how did that process evolve as she went through treatment? I mean, was it seamless? Was it like a fire hose? How did that work?
Yeah, it felt very much like a fire hose, because obviously some of it depends on the clinics that you're in and the people that you interact with and how do you get onboarded and those types of things. So I'll set that off to the side. But it definitely felt like a fire hose, because I was like just given a sheet. It's like, okay, we're gonna do vitamin C, then we're gonna do mistletoe, and then we're gonna do this injection, and then we're gonna schedule out IPT, and then we're gonna schedule, and I'm like, what's IPT? Isn't mistletoe poisonous? Like, can't you can like not eat that, right? So like you're going through all of these types of things, like, and I had no context for them, but at the same time, like, Jane had done like her research. She had trusted people that had referred her to this specific place, and we're like, we're gonna trust that this doctor knows exactly what she's doing and that she's gonna take care of us in this process. So, and even just the, like, I'll just use the word vibe of the clinic itself was like, I could grab any nurse and say, hey, real quick, can you explain this to me quickly? Like, why are we doing this many grams of vitamin C, or why is it that Jane can't just turn up vitamin C as much as she wants to get out of there fast, because she would do that sometimes. She's like, I don't want to be here. So she'd bump it up and then she'd get real nauseous. Like, you know what I mean? So like, but the doctors and the nurses were so kind to be able to say, like, questions weren't frowned upon, and I wasn't put on the defensive for asking them. They were very much like, oh, okay, I understand why you would be confused.
That's actually a brilliant point, because one of the things I've told my kids for years now, but I tell all of our patients, staff as well, is that the only bad question is the one you don't ask.
For sure.
We've gotten to the point where we feel like we shouldn't ask questions, but questions are a search for knowledge. And there's a great quote I use all the time, and it's from Seth Godin, which is, education does a good job of teaching people how to collect dots, but not connect them. And really, the way you transition from collection to connection is through asking questions. And so we must allow questions, because questions allow learning. They foster curiosity, and that's really what you were wanting. You wanted to make sure your sister was receiving good care. You just wanted to better understood. So hats off to those nurses and that staff, because they really saw the human nature of you, of your sister, and sought to serve. And so that is a true sense of, I think, what it means to be a healthcare worker, is a servant.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. So she went through treatment, and then how did her journey then transition from this integrative, really from conventional to integrative, then to singer-songwriter, gold star, gold button, all this stuff. How did,
Yeah.
how did all that transition?
Yeah, so she had gone through, her initial sort of set of treatments. I think it was over the year 2020 that she'd gone through, and it was one of those situations where she was stage 4, and then she comes back clean scan.
Yeah.
Like it was within 6 months that she was bad, she was there. So then it was great, like that being able to have that year where she was feeling really good, and then we went through to. I'm trying to think of the timeline because it's all just like it feels like an eternity, and it feels like that, like all at once. She came back. She had some scans come back that were bad, but I think that was after America's Got Talent. So yeah, she'd gone through. She was feeling good, and then I think America's Got Talent reached out to her and wanted her to audition for the show. For whatever reason, I don't even know why they did, but they did. And so in April of 2000, I think it was April of 2021, she was on. She went on and auditioned.
So obviously when America's Got Talent, they had the kind of the season early highlights of the auditions, and I'm sure she was featured there. What did she sing?
Yeah, so she sang an original song. It was called "It's Okay." It was a song that she had written a couple of years prior. And what's funny about that even too is that typically when you're on those shows, they don't want you to sing original songs.
Oh, they
don't. Because they want the person to be judged on one thing, not two. So like you go on, it's like, okay, we're being judged on your voice and performance, but we're also now judging the quality of whatever this is that you're singing.
Yeah, what you're writing.
Yeah, so like why would you muddy the waters?
Yeah.
Why don't you sing like
makes sense.
just sing some Celine Dion song and just be you and let the song carry itself.
Right.
But I think she really wanted her song to be highlighted, and I think she was really confident in singing that song too. Like it fit her voice, it fit who she was, and all of those things. So, I'm backtracking on the timeline. I think that she had gotten scans back that did show that she still had cancer in her spine and her liver before the audition, because she mentions it on the audition that she still had tumors. But yeah, so then when she was on the show, as many people did see it and watched it, and I'm sure we'll link to it, but the thing that set her apart wasn't just her song, it wasn't just her voice, it wasn't just, just the performance itself. It was really that she had this message of, like her line was, you don't have to wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy. Like that was the kind of her iconic line that came out of that. And that line like just resonated everywhere. It's like I sit with people all the time and they butcher the quote. They always start it with, you can't wait until life isn't hard. And then they say something in the middle. And they say, before you decide to be happy or to decide to choose joy or decide to do those things. And just her mindset, her like the way that she presented herself, and the fact that she was saying like, I don't have to allow my circumstances to define the way that I react. Wow. Like I don't have to do that. And it ties into the Nightbirde thing. Like I don't have to let the darkness around me keep me from singing. Yeah. And so really that's what set her apart, I think, from an audition perspective. And that's really what I think transformed a lot of people's lives in hearing that, even today.
Yeah, so basically the way she approached life is sunrise is just a few minutes away.
Oh yeah.
The sunlight is just right there. And that's wisdom at a young age.
Totally.
That's it's not wisdom that's learned. Mm-hmm. That's a wisdom that's gifted to her. That's incredible. So and that's why she touched so many lives at that point.
Right.
Because she obviously clearly spoke to so many people.
Yeah.
At that moment. But it was her voice, it was her song that gave her that platform. And unfortunately, it was her journey that gave her that platform to really show that she chose hope.
Yeah.
She didn't choose fear. My pastor often tells us fear will come on us. That's just life. Mm-hmm. But we can choose to let fear come in us and control us.
Yeah.
So fear, in many ways, is a choice to let it control us.
Right.
And what she was saying is, no, I choose hope. Mm-hmm. And really, that Nightbirde, those dreams are just emblematic of that.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, and that's, when you look back on life, sometimes when you're in the midst of life, you can't recognize what's happening. What's the purpose? What's the design in all of this? And then when you look back on it, you go, oh, there's the dot connecting to the dot, connecting to the dot, connecting to the dot. Now, we may not like where those dots end,
Right.
but the designer of those dots is taking it to a future that is much bigger than what we can imagine and think about.
Yeah.
And that's really what, I think her story is highlighting, because now her story transitions into a different phase. So tell me how she went from this, just beautiful song, and it was very emotional. I think I called it the golden button. It's the golden buzzer.
Buzzer, yeah.
Yeah, buzzer.
Yeah, buzzer.
I've been a little bit removed from that.
Oh,
Used
yeah,
to
yeah.
watch it with all our kids.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we watched that one, but the golden buzzer. So how did she move from that point then to a foundation?
Yeah.
And then where you are today and where we are today?
Yeah, totally. So in that in that aftermath of the golden buzzer, it was just crazy. Like she was #1 on iTunes, that song that she'd sang for like 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row, and she was, charting in different countries, and it was crazy. Like with literally overnight success kind of situation, But then her health took a turn in the months following, and she had to drop out of the competition altogether.
Oh.
So that was sort of the way that had played itself out, where she just, I really think the Lord empowered her to be able to sing as well as she did during that time that she was on the show, because by the time we got, 6 weeks out from then, like she was coughing, she was struggling to sing, she was struggling, like it was difficult. And like her treatments would continue. They were almost like the treatments kept the status quo, was kind of where we started to get, where it was like we weren't making forward progress, but she wasn't deteriorating.
Just treading water.
It was treading water.
Yeah.
But so really the only reason why we were able to pursue an integrative path, and this, this ties into why we even started the Nightbirde Foundation, is because we had set up some GoFundMe pages to try to raise money so that Jane could go to an integrative clinic. Like, we're not wealthy people. We're from Zanesville, Ohio. Like, we're just not, we are just Midwesterners,
Yeah. Tried and true red-blood Americans.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So we're not poor, but we don't have, we don't have 150 grand laying around, to fly my sister to California and just let her like live there and also get treatments. So we had set up some crowdfunding, and we raised just like hundreds of thousands of dollars through those avenues. And it's because of the generosity of tens of thousands of people all over the world that Jane was able to survive as long as she did. And so we had a lot of that money still there as we were going through her treatments, and even in the aftermath of the Golden Buzzer, show. I say aftermath as if it's bad, but like in the, you know what I'm saying, like right after that. And Jane and I were sitting up in San Clemente actually, and we were talking about what are we going to do with all of this crowdfunding money, like once you get better. Like that was the conversation that she and I were having, because it was never, like I never really had it in my mind, and I don't think she did either, that she was going to pass away,
right.
Like at least not soon. I mean, none of us get out of here alive, obviously, so like we're,
right.
But like we didn't think it was going to be this quick. So we had talked about it. We thought, you know what, like we should set up a foundation to help other women just like Jane who want to get integrative treatments but can't afford them, because I know that there are hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of Janes out there in the world right now that are diagnosed young, that maybe want to go down an integrative path and don't have the funding to do it. But so that conversation with Jane was just kind of like, it was like a little blip in the radar, because it was this once you get better idea.
Yeah.
So we weren't going to set it up right away. We were like, okay, once you get better,
yeah.
then we'll set this up. So then fast forward, I think it was almost 8 months. She passed away in February of 2020.
So they told her 6 to 9 months. How long did she live after that point?
A little over 2 years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What was her quality of life there?
Oh, it was so high. Like she was, whenever I would come out, like she wasn't, running marathons or anything, but like,
I can't do that
I can't do
now.
it either. Yeah, me neither. But like at the same time, like the quality of life was high. Like, we walked down to the beach, or we'd go to the store, we'd go do her stuff. Like she was able to write and to sing and to play her piano, and like so the quality of life for those 2 years was extremely high. Obviously, towards the end, things started deteriorating, and those sorts of things. Her energy levels were low, and her ability to really to move and go, started to decline. But like in my mind, the generosity of all of those people allowed like Jane to go to an integrative clinic, which allowed her to live long enough, to change the world.
Basically, to at least double what she was told.
Oh, totally.
And to do so in a high quality of life. And honestly, what happened is she's now impacting lives.
Yeah.
Really, and she will for generations. And that's the eternal design, that seems to go, well, this is tragic, and it is.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a whole lot of good.
Yeah, absolutely.
That comes out of this,
Absolutely.
and it's unfortunate because health insurance doesn't typically cover integrative medicine, and we don't want to dive down that rabbit hole. But a lot of patients want access to integrative medicine, natural, holistic, integrative medicine. But like you said, so many patients, they don't have the funding and they don't know where to begin. They don't know how to do that and that process. So is that how and what this, what's the mission of the Nightbirde Foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. So after Jane had passed away in 2022, we one of the first things that popped in my mind was like, we've got to set this foundation up. Like we've got to help, and because I knew that we still had like estate money that was there. I knew we had some, like even the money that was coming in from from her merchandise sales and her music sales and things of that nature. So I got with my dad and with our family, and we had decided that we were going to set up the Nightbirde Foundation, which is a 501c3, and we're using the revenues or the profits from her music, from her merchandise sales, from all of those things to fund the organization,
Right.
so that her music and her life and her legacy continues to fund. But what we do, to answer your question, is we want to bring hope and healing to young women that are going through their breast cancer journey, primarily through these integrative clinics. So the conversation that we've been having with different clinics is saying, like we're trying to find young women that want to go down this path, and we want to help them in that journey. As they walk through it, primarily because, like you said, there's, unless your parents are super wealthy or you're, a CEO of a SaaS company in Silicon Valley and you're 28 and you're millionaires, like you're not going to be able to walk down that path. And I can't get past the idea that like there are other Janes out there. Like my little sister is out there somewhere in somebody else's family that doesn't have the blessing of a GoFundMe with hundreds of thousands of dollars, that doesn't have the blessing of a family situation that's going to be able to support them and to help them and to walk through that with them, that doesn't even have the blessing of access to an integrative facility for them to be able to go through their journey, in a way that's not destructive. And that's really my driver, is that, like I miss Jane every day. We're 20 months apart. She was my best friend my entire life. And so thinking that there are other Janes out there in the world that don't have access the same way that we did really drives me to want to help them.
So basically the Nightbirde Foundation is using her life, her story, her hope to help people that are facing their darkest night to reach their morning sunrise.
That's right.
I mean, that is truly her story, and now your story, and this foundation story, I think people might look at it and say that's tragic, but it's just as with that darkness, light comes with that Nightbirde.
Yeah.
The tragic turns to hope.
Well,
So it is the exact parallel: darkness to light, tragedy to hope.
Yep.
And now you're carrying that hope on. You're carrying that sunrise to, a zenith high in the sky, to really impact lives, not just for the immediacy, but hopefully for generations to come.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought it's vital for you to tell your story, because I think your foundation is a calling. I don't think it's just a circumstance, a happenstance. I think this is clearly a eternal design that now is being passed on to you. So how can people who hear this, see this, first of all, they can still access her music and
Correct.
and listen to her music, etc.
Yeah.
And so that would then in turn, help to fund some of the foundation, right?
Correct.
How can listeners that want to maybe find out more about the foundation, donate to the foundation? How can they be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on all your social media platforms. It's Nightbirde Foundation, Nightbirde with an E. Foundation. You can go to nightbirdefoundation.org to learn about what we're doing and what we've done. We supported a young woman already. We extended her life by a little over a year.
Wow.
Already, and that was a really meaningful thing for us to be able to do. She was able to reconcile with her dad that she hadn't seen in 15 years. She came to faith in that year. So like even the fact that we might be buying people 12 months, or we might be buying people 24 months, but like in Jane's case, you can change the world in 24 months.
Yeah.
Like you can do that. And so the nightbirdefoundation.org is where you can go. And then any of the merchandise that you purchase or any of the music that you pre-order or that you listen to, all the profits are being funneled into the Nightbirde Foundation so that Jane's voice and Jane's legacy and Jane's mission isn't just this like good feeling that we all have,
Right.
but it's a tangible place where people are getting tangible results in their lives.
Well, you are, as I mentioned, you are part of that sunrise, and as that sun, just rises higher in the sky, hope just gets brighter and brighter and brighter. So, Mitch, thank you for what you're doing. I hope this has helped to highlight Jane's story, Jane's life, and really her legacy.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing, is you're carrying that on, but you're doing so not just in a short time frame, but really, a legacy of generations to come. So Mitch, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the foundation. And I look forward to working you in any way we can in the future. So
Sure.
Mitch,
Hey, thank you for having me.
you bet. So Dr. Goodyear here. We're going to close up this episode of Practicing with Dr. Nathan Goodyear. So check us out, of course, on the podcast, wherever you download or stream your podcasts. Also check us out at our website, drgoodyear.com. That's just as it is, drgoodyear.com. Check us out on Instagram, dr.goodyear, and look for new information coming to you soon. Information of hope, healing, teaching, all around and through integrative medicine, not just in the treatment of cancer, obviously that's primary, but also to focus on that goal of healing to restore wellness, because that's what it means to be a physician. We will talk to you very soon.
For more information just like what we discussed today, I encourage you to follow us on YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio streaming platforms. And in there, we'll talk about all things related to healing, wellness, cancer, and much, much beyond, because it doesn't just apply to cancer. Our goal here is to turn to healing, restore health, and promote your wellness, whether that greatest obstacle to wellness being cancer or any other named disease. Our goal is your wellness. I'm Dr. Nathan Goodyear, and enjoy our future podcasts at Practicing with Dr. Goodyear.